Look down at the ground beneath your feet. Feel the solid earth. Take a breath of the air and listen to the quiet hum of life. It feels permanent, stable, inevitable. But this perfectly balanced oasis is an illusion. 4.5 billion years ago, there was no Earth. There was only a stellar nursery, a massive freezing cloud of gas and dust drifting through the Milky Way. Then a nearby massive star exploded in a supernova. That shockwave hit our dust cloud, forcing it to collapse in on itself, spinning faster and faster until the extreme pressure ignited our sun. The planet that emerged from the chaotic dust ring was the closest thing to hell the universe can produce. Geologists call it the Hadean Eon, named after the Greek god of the underworld. Earth was a raging ocean of magma thousands of miles deep. The surface broiled at over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The sky was thick, black, and toxic, choked with carbon dioxide and sulfur, while an endless barrage of asteroids hammered the surface. Our modern stability is the end result of 4 billion years of continuous catastrophe. Every biological advantage we possess was hammered out through extreme environmental pressure and sheer cosmic luck. Then came the darkest day in early history. A rogue, Mars-sized planet named Theia was sharing Earth's orbit. It slammed into our young planet at 25,000 miles per hour. The impact was so catastrophic, it completely vaporized Theia and liquefied the Earth, blasting a massive ring of molten debris out into space. Over a few thousand years, that glowing debris cooled and coalesced to form our moon. Back then, it was 10 times closer, looming massive in the sky. Its immense gravity acted like a planetary anchor. It stabilized Earth's wobbly rotation and locked us into a steady axial tilt, creating the predictable, regular seasons complex life would eventually rely on. As the solar system slowly calmed, the magma crust began to cool into solid rock. Volcanoes outgassed massive amounts of water vapor, releasing water that had been trapped inside millions of asteroid impacts. When the surface temperature finally dropped below the boiling point, it started to rain. It rained for thousands of centuries, filling the basins until a toxic, iron-choked, olive-green ocean covered the globe. Deep beneath these alien oceans, hydrothermal vents spewed boiling, mineral-rich fluids into the freezing water. Down there, in total darkness and under crushing pressure, basic organic chemicals began to combine. They formed amino acids and enclosed themselves inside tiny, fragile membranes. Chemistry crossed the threshold into biology, and the first single-celled organisms were born. The total destruction of the early planetary system provided both the structural stability and the chemical water necessary to harbor life. Without those violent impacts, Earth would lack the seasons and the oceans that define our world today. For 1 billion years, life was nothing but microscopic deep-sea slime. Then, a mutant arose. These cyanobacteria floated near the surface and developed a way to harvest the energy of the sun. They took in water and carbon dioxide, and they expelled a highly reactive waste product, oxygen. At the time, Earth was kept warm by a thick atmospheric blanket of methane. As cyanobacteria pumped billions of tons of oxygen into the sky, it reacted with the methane, destroying the planet's thermal shield. The temperature plummeted. Polar ice caps advanced toward the equator, reflecting the sun's heat back into space. The oceans froze solid under a mile of ice, turning Earth into a silent, drifting snowball. Life was pushed to the absolute brink of extinction. But the Earth's core was still churning. Subglacial supervolcanoes eventually punched through the miles of ice, releasing colossal amounts of carbon dioxide. With the oceans sealed shut, the gas couldn't be absorbed. It built a new greenhouse layer in the sky. The massive glaciers melted violently, acting like cosmic sandpaper. They ground the continents down to dust and washed unimaginable amounts of mineral nutrients into the seas. Mix a nutrient-rich ocean with an oxygen-rich atmosphere, and biology goes into overdrive. 540 million years ago, the Cambrian explosion began. Life stopped passively absorbing chemicals and started eating other life. To survive this terrifying new arena, simple squishy blobs grew hard shells, grasping claws, and for the first time, eyes. Biological complexity emerged as a survival response to the extreme environmental bottlenecks life accidentally created for itself. Up in the atmosphere, the accumulating oxygen formed the ozone layer. This chemical shield finally blocked the lethal ultraviolet radiation from the sun. Safe beneath this new canopy, plants crept out of the surf and used their roots to break bare rock into the very first soil. Fungi, arthropods, and eventually amphibians followed them onto land. By 300 million years ago, Earth was dominated by global, swampy rainforests. These massive trees pumped out so much oxygen that levels spiked to 35%. Insects breathe by absorbing oxygen directly through pores, and with the air so saturated, their biological limits vanished. Dragonflies grew to the size of eagles. Millipedes the size of cars moved like armored tanks through the undergrowth. Earth's history relentlessly swings between miraculous creation and apocalyptic destruction. In modern-day Siberia, a continent-sized Sea of Magma erupted for hundreds of thousands of years. The atmosphere choked with toxic ash. Global temperatures skyrocketed. The oceans became stagnant, lost their oxygen, and turned as acidic as vinegar. 96% of all marine species vanished in the Great Dying. From the ashes of that scorched wasteland, a lineage of surviving reptiles claimed the empty world. These were the dinosaurs. They were fast, warm-blooded, and beautifully adapted to every corner of the globe. For 165 million years, apex predators with bone-crushing jaws and acute senses were the undisputed masters of the planet. 66 million years ago, a rock the size of Mount Everest was hurtling through the dark at 45,000 miles per hour. It slammed directly into the shallow waters of the modern-day Yucatan Peninsula, punching a hole 20 miles deep into the Earth's crust. The blinding blast instantly vaporized everything within 1,000 miles, but the true killer was in the sky. The asteroid blasted millions of tons of sulfur-rich rock out into space. As gravity pulled that debris back down, the friction turned the entire atmosphere into a glowing dome of red-hot coils. Forests spontaneously erupted into flames, and thick soot settled into a pitch-black, freezing nuclear winter. Absolute biological dominance offers no protection against terrible cosmic luck. In a fraction of a second, the glorious empire of the dinosaurs collapsed into dust, and the Earth's slate was wiped clean once again. Hiding deep underground, safe from the firestorms and the freezing dark, were our ancestors. Because these tiny, shrew-like mammals lived in burrows and required few calories, they survived the apocalypse. When the dust finally settled, the giant reptiles were gone. The meek crept out of the dirt and inherited the earth. Over millions of years, they moved into the trees and became primates. Then, the African climate began to dry. Dense rainforests shrank, replaced by vast open savannas. Forced out of the dwindling canopy, these primates had to adapt to the tall grass. To see predators over the brush, they stood up on their hind legs. Bipedalism freed their hands. They started picking up rocks. They started shaping those rocks. They learned to strike flint and capture fire. Cooked meat provided a massive surplus of available calories, fueling the rapid growth of the human brain. To understand the sheer scale of this history, compress the entire 4.5 billion year timeline into a single 24-hour day. Earth forms at midnight. The first single-celled life appears around 4 a.m. Plants don't reach the land until 10 p.m. The dinosaurs are wiped out at 11:39 p.m. And humanity? Every empire we've built, every war we fought, and every stone tool we've carved happens in the last 2 seconds before midnight. We are incredibly new, but we are completely unique. You are made of atoms forged in the hearts of dying stars. You carry the genetic legacy of microscopic slime, amphibious fish, and terrified underground mammals. We are the universe waking up and finally looking back at itself. Let me know in the comments which era of Earth's history you would time travel to, and don't forget to like and subscribe.